Welcome to the Maria Liberati Show, where food meets art, travel, and life. So what does food mean to you? Today's episode, we're going to chill, and I do mean that even literally. So my special guest is Nora D Eclessis, who wrote this really interesting book that is actually going to help us chill and calm down and clear away all the stress from our lives. It's called Zen Rohatsu, and it's a really interesting book, and you're going to learn a little bit about meditating and how that clears your mind and helps to clear away all the stress. And then I'm going to give a recipe for, it's called a frullati. Frullati, sort of like a milkshake, but it's made with fruits all wired together, and like a smoothie, and a nice chilled smoothie frullati to help you cool from the well, we're not in summer yet, but the hot weather that we've been having. So stay tuned for today's segment. So I'm always reading excerpts from my latest book, which is The Basic Art of Italian Cooking, Diaries, Seasons. And that's really a diary. It's a culinary memoir that I created while I was in Italy for many, many years. This recipe, which the recipe is called melamania. Mela means apple in Italian. And this melamania is the frullati, sort of a smoothie that I talked about, and but I also wanted to read a little bit from my diary from that day that I experienced a melamania. One of my stops this summer while in Italy was a fashionable coffee bar in the Eur neighborhood of Rome. That's spelled E-U-R. Those of you that have been to Rome might know that neighborhood in Rome. And today my memory was there because I began my day with this healthy, non-alcoholic aperitif or frullati that I discovered there. You can have this delicious beverage to start the day, or a light lunch, or an aperitif in the afternoon. And this is a really refreshing drink. Here's my recipe for melamania. 7 fresh strawberries, 1 banana, half of an apple, 1 cup of unsweetened apple juice, 1 teaspoon of cinnamon, 6 ounces of plain low-fat or non-fat yogurt. Place 5 strawberries that have been hulled and cleaned, the banana and apple in the blender. When they're smooth, add in the apple juice, the cinnamon, and yogurt. Blend till smooth and pour in 2 glasses. Decorate with a whole strawberry placed on the side of each glass. Enjoy. So you can even start your day with this melamania. And remember that excerpt, that recipe, as mentioned, is from my book, The Basic Art of Italian Cooking, Diaries, Seasons. And that book was just released, and you can find it at Amazon.com. It's on Kindle. You can also find it at artoflivingprimamedia.com, and listen to some upcoming episodes. We'll probably be having contests to do a book giveaway. You can grab it on any of those sites as mentioned before. So my guest today is Nora D Eclessis, and she's the author of a really interesting book called Zen Rohatsu. I hope I pronounced all that correctly, Nora.
Terrific.
Great. Thank you so much for being here. Nora, the book, it just fascinated me when I read the press on it. It looks so interesting. So I guess we'll start with, maybe, I know you were telling me where that word Rohatsu, it's Zen Rohatsu, the book, what that relates to. I think that's so interesting.
Yes, I decided to take the book from the perspective of one holiday. And Rohatsu is a holiday where a specific division of Buddhists celebrate the enlightenment of Siddhartha, the historical Buddha. Oh. And that holiday happens to be in December, and it runs from the beginning, the 1st of December, to the 8th, which is Rohatsu hits. And it's a very exciting time because during the course of the book and the week, what we see is why we meditate, probably why we should meditate, and the historical perspective, the history of how it started and why this specific type of meditation has been preferable, at least in my life, throughout many decades.
And that holiday, I just want to point this out to my listeners. I believe it's celebrated in Japan, right?
Yes, it is. And Zen is uniquely a Japanese form or division of Buddhism.
Oh, okay. So that holiday is mainly celebrated in Japan then.
That's correct. Or in America with people who also practice Zen. And we differentiate. We have Zen, which comes under a certain type of Buddhism called Mahayana. And in America, there are Tibetan under His Holiness the Dalai Lama,
right?
And Theravada. So there are three huge divisions. This is one small look, one snapshot, sort of an A to Z on that particular week. It is the 12th month, the 8th day, December the 8th, that it's celebrated. And I was sitting in a video Rohatsu because of pandemic. And I was sitting there thinking, which is a no-no. And what I was thinking about, of course, for me, was the month of December and probably the 7 fishes. I don't know what, something came into my head. And I thought, I really should do something with this, because who knows at that point in time during pandemic, when we'll be able to do Rohatsu in person.
Right.
Where we could all sit in a living room or a monastery or a sangha. The community is called a sangha. And do it again. So I started to write the book. 7 or 8 months later, you're my first interview.
Wow. Well, thank you. It's nice. I'm glad to hear that. One question I had is, so if you're in Japan and you're going to celebrate this holiday, so let's hear, how would the holiday be celebrated? Is there any specific thing in relation to, like, I'm sure there are traditions or anything?
There are traditions. And I opened the book describing what a standard or semi-traditional Rohatsu would be like, with a guided visualization. The gong sounds and the book opens. And in the second chapter, I talk about exactly that. How is this holiday celebrated? It's celebrated with what the Zens call zazen, which is their type of meditation. They do 2 significant types of meditation, which are their primary core, zazen, and another one called shikantanza. Zazen meaning when a thought comes into your head while you're meditating, you basically let it come in and you let it go. We have a tendency, particularly in America, I think, is we see a beautiful bird while we're sitting there meditating, and we want to elbow the person next to us and say, did you see it? It was a scarlet tanager. Wasn't it magnificent? No, not in Zen. Zen, we would say in our minds, not vocally, bird flying, and that would be it. And we would move back into the serenity of the meditation itself. And that's significant, because that's what quiets the mind. That's what allows us to shut it off for a little bit during that meditation.
So you're actually meditating, and I could see that too, because I love watching birds, especially the different colored ones and everything. In my one house, I have all these different kinds of birds coming. And so in other words, I could understand how that's a form of meditation, right? And it's helpful for stress or anything.
But we
like
want to
that.
look at that. I'm gonna interrupt just for a second. I'm sorry.
Yes.
We want to look at that as something that is simply exists in nature. What we're doing is we're sitting usually on a cushion called a zafu. So we're not looking out the window, but what happens is there's a window. So we hear fire trucks, we hear birds, but we're trained in meditation simply to let that come and go, rather than chatting about it, rather than sitting there having a conversation about the joy of the bird. So Zazen is very structured in that sense. We simply let it come and we let it go.
Right. Oh, that's very, very interesting. Now, Zen is, I don't want to, I want to be sure I'm saying something correctly. Zen is a form of Buddhism.
Yeah, there are different divisions, and Zen is a huge division established first in China and brought into China by a very interesting patriarch of Zen called Bodhidharma. And Bodhidharma took it into China, and then basically it also went into Japan. And the Japanese became quite proficient at adopting Zen as essentially a major part of their religion. There are thoughts in Japan, and sometimes it's verbalized, that everyone is born Shinto. Everyone is part of the Shinto religion, but they die Zen. So in other words, they combine the two many times in such a beautiful way. And I write on both, of course, but the Zen Mahayana Buddhist tradition, is the one that produces Zazen meditation, a type of meditation. There are many, many types of meditation.
Oh, yes. So I know we chatted about this a little bit, and I know, there's a lot of stressful times going on now, and meditation really does help with that. Can you give, if somebody out there wants to just try meditation, just as a beginner, do you have any pointers or some way for somebody to get started in trying it?
Yes. What I do is outline a program that was outlined significantly by Siddhartha, because I think when you go back 2,700 years with something that's worked, you have a good chance of it actually being a proficient way to meditate. So in essence, it's a program, it's a path, and the path says, well, this is the right style of doing things. Let's do things like this. Let's not lie. Let's be ethical. Let's not gossip. And let's sit. Let's just sit. We'll sit on a small pillow that's usually structured on a slightly larger one. The little one's called a zafu. I have very specific instructions in the book, in one of the chapters, on how to sit and etiquette, the etiquette that exists, that we're very quiet. And when the last bell rings and we begin to meditate, we don't move. It's until the bell rings again. So say for about 20 minutes, we lower our eyes into a half mast, and we put our hands in one of the various mudras, and we simply meditate in a way that allows us to proceed without thinking. And that's based on a spiritual program and a mindfulness practice. So there's a sort of a combination. It's not just, sitting on the couch in the living room. It's, it's structured, and it's a good structure if you're interested in it.
Yes, yeah, it is. It does. It sounds like it, and it's a good way to do what you said, quiet your mind and kind of get out all the clutter and try to de-stress. Everybody, I think many people need to do that right now. And it's yes, it's structured, but it's a simple way to, try to overcome some, the stress of every day. Nora, I didn't ask you, but how did you get into writing about this? I'm assuming, did you spend time in Japan and learning about this? Or
actually, I spent a lot of time as a child listening to the adults, and quite frankly, my mother was a very spiritual person, and her cousin married a gal from Japan. So when we would sit at the table, I would listen to him talk about Shinto and Zen and his experiences and how he was going to raise his children in Japan for all of these reasons. And I thought, this is fascinating. It just really intrigued me because it was very different from my early years, which were in a very ethnic culture. My dad was an immigrant, and so it was very different and very interesting. And by the time I got to college, I started to read everything I could get my hands on this Zen that he had spoken of a few years earlier. And the very first book that I read was Siddhartha by Hermann Hesse. Hermann Hesse, who was a Nobel Prize in literature, I believe. And he wrote it long before I was born. But I read it, and I read it again, and I read it a third time, and I thought, wow, this is fascinating. I'm going to study meditation in college and grad school. I got married. We moved to California. There were Zen monasteries just beginning to emerge in the West. And they came into the West initially because there was a migration of Chinese and Japanese during the gold rush. So more so in the West than in the East, although I'm an Easterner. My husband is from California. So that's how it all started. And it just continued. The more I studied, the more I learned about it, the more I wanted to sit in Zazen. And I remember reading His Holiness the Dalai Lama, which is, by the way, another division. He's the head of another division, the Tibetan. and a marvelous, amazing writer and speaker.
Mhm.
And he said, if you don't have time to meditate, for about a half an hour every day,
Mhm.
meditate for 2 hours. And I learned again from the elders that was the way to go. So I do 2 hours a day, and I have for several decades.
Oh, wow. That's,
Now, one really exciting thing, when
yes.
this book came out
Uh-huh.
just a few days ago, it went to the top of the bestseller list in 5 categories, for new books on, oh goodness, history of Zen and a variety of other small categories. And there it was in a larger category next to Siddhartha by Hermann Hesse. So I was a third and he was in the top position. And within a few hours, I was in the top position. And I
Well,
thought, isn't that interesting? This is
yeah,
the book that started it all for me. So it's very
yeah,
exciting.
that
Very,
is very exciting. Definitely. Really, really exciting. Wow.
and that, by the way, was a novel.
Uh-huh. Oh, okay. So, but that's really exciting that, it came out with a bang, I guess you can say. That's great, really. How long did it take you to do the book? You said it was about 8 months.
Probably more like a year, but 8 months of really intense
Huh?
thinking. You think about it, you write a little about it. I wanted to select the Zen masters that were significant to me.
Uh-huh.
Again, it's my book. It's a sort of
Exactly.
the backstory on meditation, and
Yes.
the ones that I really was familiar with and that I had read. I've met several over the years, or I've been in the audience when they do a seminar.
Mhm.
I run retreats for ladies, mostly women. I've been
Mhm.
doing retreats for about 2 decades, and we always do a very holistic sort of alternative wellness type retreat where they do yoga and they meditate. We've tried everything. I've taught them, just about everything. I'm not, I'm just a lay person who meditates, but
Uh-huh.
I bring in guest lecturers who are really quite proficient. And we've had a few ordained people come in and do a great job. So it's something that we've continued to do as a group and as a Sangha, even during pandemic, using the exact same technology that we're using right now.
So you're able to do it virtually then? You've done them virtually. Oh, that's great. Yes,
Yes.
that's wow. Wow. Well, much success with the book. So Nora, do you have a website that people can find you more information out?
I do. However, I have a rather lengthy list of books on
Oh, okay.
Amazon.com. I have an author page.
Okay.
I've written a lot on stress management, spirituality, and mindfulness over the years as a nonfiction writer. So
Yes.
Amazon is probably the safest bet,
That's
because spelling my name it's brutal. It took me till second grade, I think. It's NoraDeclesis.com. It is my name.com. And yes, there's a good look at some of the awards some of the books have won. So that's nice too.
great. Yes, that is nice. And I'll have your name and this book on the website for the Marie Liberati Show podcast, and probably in case anyone out there wants to check it out, I'll have that up there.
Thank you.
And so the book was released a couple days ago, so it's out there. Then people can get it on Amazon, correct?
Yes, it's currently out in the Kindle ebook format.
Great.
Yeah, we wanted to get it up as quickly as we could,
Yes.
and I think it's going to be an ebook for a few months before
Yeah.
anything else happens.
Exactly. Oh, that's great. Wonderful. Well, much success, and hopefully you'll come back in your next book. I'm sure you'll have another, or we can do a show on, I love mindfulness. Mindfulness is such a great topic.
Well,
So,
yes, multicultural mindfulness. That was the book prior to this one, and it's a good look at the international way in which people can have a mindfulness meditation, and everything in the book it's essentially free, which is something that's
uh-huh.
important to me. It's open to everyone.
Yes, yes.
There are no limitations.
Oh, wow. Yep, that's great. All right. Well, Nora
Thank you.
D Eclessis, and it's Zen Rohatsu, right?
It is.
Zen Rohatsu, check it out, and a great way to bring some relaxation and free yourself from stress, as well as a great read. Thanks again, Nora. Thanks for being with us.
Thank
Take
you, and
care.
be well.
You too. Thanks for listening to the Maria Liberati Show and joining me for another episode. And as always, thanks to my producer, Britton Roselle, and this week's special guest, Nora D Eclessis, author of the book Zen Rohatsu. And you can find me at marialiberati.com, on Twitter at Maria Liberati, on Facebook at Chef Maria Liberati, on Instagram at Maria Liberati, on Pinterest at Maria Liberati. Let's see, my Roku channel, The Basic Art of Italian Cooking by Maria Liberati, my Vimeo channel, that's vimeo.com/Maria Liberati. And also you can find my book series, The Basic Art of Italian Cooking, The Basic Art of Italian Cooking, Holidays and Special Occasions, and my latest book, The Basic Art of Italian Cooking, Diaries, Seasons, at marialiberati.com, at artoflivingprimamedia.com, on Amazon, and on Kindle right now also. Until next week, peace, love, and pasta.